Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. We greatly appreciate it. We have some new grant programs that are currently on our webpage, which you can check out. I will put the link in the chat box, but I want to go ahead and introduce our esteemed people from the NEA. We have Andi Mathis, Nancy Daugherty, and Ben Kessler. If you guys want to start us out.
Great. And do you mind sharing those slides, Lance?
I sure will.
Thank you, sir. Great. Well,
thank you, Lance. I have it. We can see it.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having us today. Wish we could be with you in West Virginia, and I've promised one day soon we will all be there. But I think, next best thing, and certainly a nice way we can hear from everyone across the state. We really couldn't, as Randall said, couldn't ask for better partners here in DC. I'm Director of Congressional Affairs here at the NEA, and really the West Virginia delegation have been such steadfast champions of the arts, the NEA, and the creative workforce. So we're really indebted to them. And of course, to Randall, to Lance, and everyone in West Virginia, we're so grateful for everything you've done, not just for the state, but really been a model for states all around the country. So thank you. And it's really an honor to be with you today. So our goal for today is to demystify the National Endowment for the Arts grant application process. You may know that we have an upcoming deadline on August 12th. Those are American Rescue Plan funds, but we want to provide an introduction for those of you who might be new to applying for federal funds. And we're eager to hear from you as well. We want you to leave feeling as though you have a great understanding that this money is truly available to nonprofits, schools, and local governments. And we'll provide a general overview of the NEA, all of our grant programs, and then get into those details that I'm sure you're looking forward to hearing about the upcoming opportunity that I mentioned about the American Rescue Plan. And we'll be sure to leave plenty of time for questions. So in addition to our regular grant programs, the National Endowment for the Arts will distribute nearly $135 million from the American Rescue Plan. Of that amount, 40% by statute has been allocated to state and regional arts organizations for regranting through their own programs. So would encourage you to reach out to Randall, to Lance, and to understand the opportunities that you have, as we'll get into during the question and answers, and Nancy will mention as well. You'll be able to apply not only to the National Endowment for the Arts at the federal level through the American Rescue Plan, but to the state as well. And funding will be available for general operating support, and guidelines are now up. Would encourage you to take a look at our website. And we're hoping to reach a broad constituency, including organizations that serve populations traditionally underserved by government, organizations with small and medium-sized budgets, organizations from both rural and urban communities, and organizations, as I mentioned, that are applying for federal funds through the National Endowment for the Arts for the first time.
Ben, it's
yes,
Randall. Well, while Lance is fixing that, I want to introduce you to our commission chair. John Strickland is on here, and I'm going to let John say hello to everybody. I put allowed to talk. Can you fix that?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, John. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Hi, John. Very nice to meet you.
I'm looking forward to it, Ben. Very much.
Hope
to see you, John.
In person sometime soon.
Like to be in person sometime.
Yes, sir.
John, I didn't see anybody else from the commission on. If there's anybody else on the commission.
So again, the website there is on the left-hand side. I know that it's not a clickable link, and that can be a bit annoying, but hopefully it's easy to remember, arts.gov/ARP-grants. So that's, again, all the technical resources that we're developing. That's an ongoing process where you'll be able to watch videos from a number of our very talented and committed specialists, as well as find the schedule for those open, what we're calling office hours. Think of an academic setting where you drop by, very relaxed atmosphere, online, ask your questions, get to know someone at the agency, and hopefully that will create an ongoing relationship. And with that, I'll pass it over to really our content expert for the day and West Virginia's own Nancy Daugherty.
Thank you so much, Ben. It is really wonderful to be here today with all of you. And I just put a little note in the chat. I see so many familiar names, and there are new names as well. And it's great to be. I'm literally in West Virginia speaking to you about the Arts Endowment. And I'm really glad to see so many West Virginia friends. So the Arts Endowment funding supports arts projects. On the left side of the screen, you'll see the types of organizations that are eligible for funding. So that includes 501c3 nonprofit organizations, units of state or local government. This includes local arts agencies and educational institutions, as well as federally recognized tribal communities or tribes. On the right side of the screen, you can see examples of things that the Arts Endowment is not able to fund, which includes general operating support. And we're going to be talking in a little bit about the American Rescue Plan. That's an exception. We are unable to support individual artists with direct grants or commercial activities or fiscal sponsors. So the next slide, please. In order to be eligible to apply for funding, an organization must be a nonprofit at the time of the application, have, one more, Lance. Oh, no, that's it. That's right. Sorry. Thank you. So you have to be a nonprofit at the time of application, have a 3-year history of arts programming. And if you've received funding in the past from the Arts Endowment, you have to be in compliance with all the final reporting. Most of our grant programs require a 1-to-1 cost share or match of non-federal funds. And we can talk in more detail later about matching funds, but that can be from earned income, ticket sales, in-kind donations, there are a variety of ways to meet a match. The American Rescue Plan funds are non-matching. And then the next slide, please. So the Arts Endowment has a very rigorous review process. It includes 3 levels of review. We first have a level of review where citizen panelists, experts from the field, review all of the applications that are received. Each panel includes a layperson, and that's someone who's not working directly in the arts. All panels are very diverse in terms of geography, gender, ethnicity, and expertise. Once a panel meets and makes recommendations, those are then submitted to the National Council on the Arts, our presidentially appointed governing body, for their review and approval. The council then forwards its recommendations to the chairman of the Arts Endowment, and the chairman provides the final review and approval. If you're interested in being a panelist, we are always looking for new panelists. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to volunteer to serve at the very end of today's meeting. And just one last comment on the process. Panel feedback is always available. So if you apply, and whether you're recommended or not, you want to have an understanding of what kind of feedback the panel had about your application, please contact the appropriate specialist, and you can ask questions, hear their feedback, and hopefully craft a stronger or as strong application the next time. So funding categories. The Arts Endowment has a number of different funding categories. Partnership agreements are available to state arts agencies and the 6 U.S. arts regional arts organizations. There are lots of opportunities for organizations, including grants for arts projects, Challenge America, Our Town, and we have grants for research projects. There are very limited opportunities for individuals. We do have literature fellowships in creative writing and translation. And we also have honorifics through the Jazz Masters, NEA Jazz Masters program, folk and traditional arts, which you all may recall that last year, one of West Virginia's own was honored with a Folk and Traditional Arts Award. And then the National Heritage Fellowship Program. Excuse me, that is the National Heritage Fellowship Program. So generally organizations are able to submit one application per year. There's some exceptions to that rule, so make sure to check the guidelines to understand that. Please move forward, Lance. So partnership agreements are made to the 50 state designated arts agencies, 6 territories, and 6 regional arts organizations. The color coding on this map aligns each state with its regional arts organization. So in case you don't know, West Virginia is in the Mid-Atlantic region. By law, 40% of the agency's federal grant dollars are designated for the states and regions. So West Virginia is supported in that 40%. And by supporting the state and regional arts organizations through partnership agreements, the Arts Endowment is able to make the arts available in many, many more communities than it could through our direct grant programs. So we mentioned 3 of our primary funding opportunities for arts organizations a minute ago, and those are Challenge America grants, grants for arts projects, and Our Town. So we're going to give you a little bit of detail about each program. Challenge America primarily supports small organizations to extend the reach of the arts to underserved populations. All grantees in this program must address how their organization or audience has been underserved, and this is defined by our legislation and agency policy and refers to those whose opportunities to experience the arts are limited by geography, ethnicity, economics, or disabilities. These are small grants, $10,000, and they do require a 1-to-1 match. The Challenge America funds are a much shorter application and review process, and they also provide robust technical assistance. The deadline is typically in April every year. So that's unfortunately already passed, but there's always next April. And then next, Our Town supports creative placemaking projects. And that means creative placemaking is about strengthening local communities through arts and culture. Creative placemaking is when arts, culture, and design activities are deliberately integrated into efforts that strengthen communities. Successful Our Town projects ultimately lay the groundwork for systemic changes that sustain the integration of arts, culture, and design into local strategies. There are some additional requirements for the Our Town program. In order to be eligible, you must have there must be a partnership between a nonprofit and local government. Grants range between $25,000 and $150,000, and there is a 1-to-1 matching requirement. The guidelines are currently posted, and the deadline for this opportunity is coming right up on August the 5th. Our next program is called Grants for Arts Projects, or the staff refers to it as GAP. This is our largest funding stream. Applications are submitted to one of 15 discipline programs at either our February or July deadline. The upcoming deadline is tomorrow, July the 8th. Funding is available for all stages of the artistic process, and this can include creation, presentation, exhibitions, arts education and enrichment, as well as services to the field, such as conferences and professional development. All grants require a 1-to-1 match, and awards range between $10,000 and $100,000. And a project timeline can be up to 2 years. Typically, they're 1-year grants, but you can have up to 2 years. So I mentioned before, there are 15 different artistic disciplines. The guidelines for each discipline are posted on the website. In order to apply, you choose the appropriate discipline based on the content of your project and follow the guidelines and application instructions for that discipline. We encourage you to look through the discipline-specific guidelines and reach out to the appropriate staff with any questions that you may have. Contact information for our full staff is available on our website, and we do welcome your calls and email. And now on to the American Rescue Plan. The American Rescue Plan grants are in three funding categories: $50,000, $100,000, or $150,000. In this case, matching funds are not required. You can have up to 2 years to expend the funds, and designated local arts agencies that are might be allowed to do subgranting should look at some separate guidelines that we have. So American Rescue Plan support is limited to any or all of the following. So this is really, these are relief funds. So if you have an organization that needs assistance with your mortgage or rent, your utility costs, staff salaries, if you've had to furlough staff and you want to bring them back, this is an opportunity to do that. Other costs could include anything related to health and safety for your staff, visitors, or audiences. And it could also include marketing and promotion costs. So here are just a few of the frequently asked questions related to the ARP funds. If you've already applied for another NEA grant this year, may you apply? Yes. If you've already applied for other federal relief funds, such as the Shuttered Venue Organization Grants or PPP, are you able to apply for Arts Endowment American Rescue Plan? Yes. Are work samples required? No, this is not project-based support, so work samples are not required. Another frequently asked question is, what's the difference between a project-based grant and general operating? For a project-based grant, all of the costs have to be specifically related to whatever the project is that you're proposing. But in the operations-based grant, those eligible costs that we just reviewed aren't tied to any specific project. So staff salaries to keep people employed, utility costs to keep the lights on, et cetera. So here's something really big. If you are a brand new organization, brand new to the federal or state grant making, and you're not yet registered to use the System for Award Management called SAM or grants.gov, you really need to get started now. The first step is to get a DUNS number through Dun & Bradstreet. There are lots of helpful links on our website to guide you to these, to SAM and grants.gov and Dun & Bradstreet. So if you need assistance finding that, please let us know. Unfortunately, we can't accept late applications. So for our 2-part application process, if you're not able to submit the first part of the application through grants.gov, you won't be able to move on to the second phase. So we, for many years, have provided guidance to apply well in advance of that part 1 deadline, so that if there are any issues with your registration or application, you'll have time to resolve those issues. And then part 2 of an application is through the Arts Endowment's applicant portal. And there's a window, a week-long window of time after the part 1 deadline where you apply for everything else. So that's a really quick overview. There's specific this is the next slide. Thank you, Lance. This is the next bit about the American Rescue Plan. We're anticipating quite a few applications and quite a few inquiries. So we do have specific email accounts and telephone numbers for you to use if you have specific inquiries about the American Rescue Plan. So if you're an organization whose legal name begins with the letters A through L, you can see on the screen there's an email address for you to use. If you are M through Z, there's a different one, and the same thing with the telephone numbers. Local arts agencies who may wish to use the sub-granting program have their own contact information there. And then if you have any kinds of questions about accessibility, we have a wonderful Office of Accessibility. Right now, the director, Beth Bienvenue, is the sole staff person, but you may contact her at accessibility@arts.gov or the Office of Civil Rights if you have a question about requesting an accommodation or an alternate format for the guidelines. So here's a little bit of the down in the weeds. If for whatever program you wish to apply for, the process is the same. It's the two-part process. Part one is working with two federal government systems, SAM and grants.gov. Organizations who may already be registered in those systems have to ensure that their registrations are renewed annually and that you have the correct permissions through the systems to apply for funding. These organizations do provide reminder emails, so it's easy to stay on top of that. So once you have current accounts in both the systems, the actual form that you submit for part one has a wonky government name. It's the SF 424 form, also known as the Application for Federal Domestic Assistance. It's a form that you provide very, very basic information about your organization. It doesn't take very long to fill out, and you are not required to submit anything specific about your project in this step. It's really just your legal name, address, contact information, and that sort of thing. So you can think about it as the first step of expressing your interest in submitting the full application. Then, this slide's a little bit hard to see, but you'll get the idea that for part two, this is where you submit the bulk of your application, all of the specifics about your project, including the project narrative. The Arts Endowment produces quite a few newsletters and a magazine, and there are lots of ways for you to be connected with us. Our regular newsletters highlight upcoming grant program deadlines, events, and other resources. So please subscribe if you'd like. You can go to the homepage at arts.gov, and there's a little button you can click to sign up for any of the newsletters that are of interest to you. And then the final reminder is, if you'd like to be a panelist, we would love to have you. You can see the link there. If we can, I'll try to drop that in the chat in a minute. That's a form that you can fill out that will put your information directly in our database. And you can also contact a person in the arts discipline for which you might wish to be a panelist and let them know of your interest. We need more West Virginia panelists, so we'd love to have you. All right. So now we're going to move into the question and answer session.
I believe Joe Tackett had his hand up.
All right.
Thanks so much.
A lot of information at you, so thank you for your patience. And go ahead, Joe.
And this is more of a question for Lance. I just want to make sure applying for the new NEA money won't preclude us from applying from any of the new state grant money.
No, but we're trying to spread the money out as much as possible. But the short answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just add to that, a state arts agency has a state and a federal appropriation. So the important thing to remember from the federal perspective is federal money is always federal money, regardless of how many times it changes hands by going from the arts endowment to a state arts agency or to a local. It's always federal money. So you can't commingle federal dollars for the same project activities. But that's easy to keep clear, I think.
Thank you, Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll add on to Nancy's answer that we're happy to see organizations access the ARP funding from as many sources as possible. And as Nancy indicated, you can't have overlapping funds. You can't pay for the same thing with two different sets of federal funding. But let's say you've got a salary position. You can do the first 3 or 4 months out of your direct NEA grant and the next 3 or 4 months of the salary out of your state arts agency grant. So it's the same position, but not for the same time period. So sequential is fine, overlapping is not fine.
And it's important to keep good records, and we do have templates and things in our manager award, in the manager award section of our website. And we're also, available to kind of help you navigate that if you need assistance finding resources for how to track those costs.
Just encourage, if you do have a question, please raise your hand, or I think you could probably put it in the chat box as well. I think while people are thinking of their questions, would just think one that we get with some regularity, given the fact that there are multiple funding levels that an organization could apply for. The big question is, how much should I apply for? So the short answer is it's based on your budget, it's based on the project, but this is not intended to be a gotcha question. We're not looking to trip anyone up in this process. This is designed with flexibility in mind. We understand of the year that everyone just went through, and that's why there are some options there. So we just encourage you, as you're trying to formulate which funding level you want to apply for, take a look at our guidelines, understand them a little bit better. And if you still have questions, reach out to the appropriate discipline director or specialist, and they'll be happy to work with you on that. Again, we set those different levels with flexibility in mind and are not looking to trip anyone up. So just would encourage everyone to stay in touch as you make that determination, whatever is right for your organization. So Jane's question is it all or nothing? So we hate to think of it in that way, but yes, you may only be awarded the amount that you apply for. So we really do want to make sure that we're working with you and you're applying for the funding level that makes sense for your organization. So the next question for Elizabeth. Yep, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that's specific to the American Rescue Plan. So
correct. My apologies.
Grants
yes.
Thank you. Yeah, we've thrown a lot of information out there. So for the grants for arts projects or other categories, aside from Challenge America, which is only $10,000 or nothing, there is a range. So if you applied in grants for arts projects for $50,000, you may be awarded 30 or 40.
Right. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. So from Elizabeth, are these grants for organizations only or the individual artists as well? By statute, we are only able to fund organizations. We do have literary arts fellowships, as well as a couple of honorifics, our Jazz Masters program and our National Heritage program. But generally speaking, with ARP, we are only able to fund organizations at this time.
We also have a question from KB Sane. Is there an option for multi-year requests or allocations? If so, could you elaborate on what that might look like?
So typically a grant period is 1 year under the Grants for Arts Projects umbrella. Projects can extend up to 2 years, but our sort of rule of thumb for that is a project has to have some kind of an evolutionary arc over the 2 years. It can't just be, we're doing a concert series year 1, we're doing a similar concert series year 2. It would have to be something that shows that growth or evolution over time. What was the second part of that question, Lance?
If so, can you elaborate on what that might look like?
Oh, then I answered that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we also have a question in the chat about needing funding from multiple disciplines. I think we would encourage you to identify the discipline that you think makes the most sense for your project, for your organization, and reach out to that discipline director or specialist. And he or she will be happy to work with you and make sure that your application is strongest in that particular discipline. And if he or she believes that another discipline is right for you, I think he or she would be glad to steer you in that direction. But would thank you for the question, Michelle. And I think that would be, I think the best first step is just to reach out. And it's very easy to find our contact information on our website, arts.gov. So I would encourage, whether you have a specific question, you're just trying to get accustomed with who works in the field at our agency, would encourage everyone to take a look at our website. Nancy or Andy, I don't know if you have something to add there.
I would just say, Michelle, generally, since the Canal Players is a theater company, whatever the project might be, it's probably going to fall or fit in theater. We do have a presenting and multidisciplinary works category for projects that truly are multidisciplinary, but theater in itself is a bit multidisciplinary. So I think if you contacted one of the theater specialists, you could get a sense of where your project might be most competitive, but I'm going to guess theater.
Thank you, Nancy. We have a question. I've read through the NEA's ARP guidelines, and they indicate that artist fees are allowed to be included in the application, but I've also seen indications that artist fees should not be included in ARP, only operating support. Can you clarify what artist fees are allowed in the NEA's ARP grants? Nancy, do you have thoughts there?
So I guess the fine line is if an artist fees are included as part of organizational costs, so it could be artist salaries that aren't tied back to some sort of specific project that you're doing in an ongoing way, then you can include artist fees. In our FAQs, it talks about that. You can include, if you've got a concert happening or a presentation happening involving an artist, those are fees that can be included, but that's in sort of more of the operational sense than a specific ongoing project. It's a little bit of a gray area. I hope that made sense.
Andy, do you have?
I was going to add paying artists for rehearsal, so you're not tying that to a particular project or a particular performance, but it's the ongoing work of the organization, so it's their operational existence, but it isn't a particular project.
Thank you. Now the question, does that include a curating fee?
It probably could include curator's costs. If you have a curator on staff, you're keeping them employed.
The question from Nathan, please clarify, is Challenge America, Our Town, and Grants for Arts Projects and the American Rescue Plan Awards with a Part 1 deadline of August 12th? Apologies, Nathan, that's only for the American Rescue Plan. Is the Part 1 deadline for organizations is August 12th. The other deadlines are throughout the year. The other one that's upcoming is the Our Town grant, also in August, but we just wanted to make sure that we were giving you full perspective of the funding opportunities. So if it is your first time applying with the Arts Endowment, you'll stay in touch and continue to apply.
The Grants for Arts Projects Part 1 deadline is tomorrow. But, you know, we'll have another deadline next February, so don't panic if you're not going to make the July 8th deadline. And our town, I think, is August the 5th.
I wanted to point out that we've got the open office hours about the ARP program. And this week we actually have some office hours this afternoon at 3:30. And that one's going to be focused on local arts agencies that subgrant. And then Friday at noon, open office hours on Zoom. And you can register right on our website. So those are this week.
Thank you for mentioning that, Andy. And I just dropped the link in the chat. Really encourage everyone to stop by. Very informal. Come meet someone new from the agency, ask your question, maybe listen in to other questions. Chances are, if you have the question, someone else does too. So we're really looking forward to those sessions as well. Any other questions? Lance, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about, here we go. Here's if we are, this may be West Virginia specific, but if we are applying for West Virginia relief funding and also NEA relief funding, should all those costs be strictly separated / different at the time of application, or can they be sorted out after we find out if we have received the funding?
They definitely need to be separated. It would be a lot easier to have them separated at the beginning and know what the separation is.
Yeah, it would be easier to have them separated, but if you're applying for rent or mortgage, I don't know that you're going to be applying to us for January, February, and March, and to Lance for April, May, and June. You know, if you get both grants, then at that point you could determine which months would be covered by which grant.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how you all handle this, Lance, but at the Arts Endowment, for every grant award that's recommended, there's a revised budget stage. So if you were to receive American Rescue Plan funds, you may be able to make some slight adjustments. But I think I kind of agree with Lance. I think defining it, you're going to have to work on your own budgeting if you're going to apply for both of these opportunities. So you might as well just kind of map it out.
In the Q&A, we have a question from Jason Young. For clarification, individual schools are not eligible to apply, but school boards can. And then if so, how do private and parochial schools fit into that?
Well, Jason Young, that's a great question. So individual schools may not apply. School districts may apply. A private or parochial school that is, or a charter school, which there aren't any in West Virginia, but those schools that can document their either nonprofit status or their status as their own local education agency would be eligible to apply.
And I think we have one more about small organizations whose funding wouldn't require, or they couldn't take on a $50,000 award. I think we would encourage you to look at other funding mechanisms, either made possible with federal funding or state funding, that there will be other funding opportunities. Lance, I don't know if you want to address that a little more specifically.
I wanted to see what exactly, it just disappeared, but I wanted to see what exactly his.
So I think that it was more a comment about having a smaller budget, and $50,000 being too big of an award demand.
Right. It absolutely depends on what the project is, but there are certain programs that they could apply for, either right now or coming up in the next cycle, that would most likely be applicable to whatever it is. If that person wants to send me a message, and I can clarify.
Joe
that.
has temporary permission to speak. So if there's some short clarification, Joe.
Yes, we are a small nonprofit art gallery in Alderson, and it is very hard for us to get grants to help us. We were really shuttered during the pandemic. It was very harmful to us. And so we are looking for grants so we can keep going. And 50,000 is a lot for us to spend. We should not ask for more than we need. And so my question is, can we ask for less than that? It's been really difficult for us to find grants that we can apply for because we're so small. But we are a nonprofit.
So I think I think then you shouldn't look at the federal American Rescue Plan funds because we are limited to 50, 100, and 150,000 as the three funding buckets. But you could talk to Lance about the American Rescue Plan funds that are available through through West Virginia, specifically the State Arts Agency specifically. I think that's going to be a better option for you.
Joe, are you a 501c3? Okay.
Joe, you're on mute.
I believe that we are. We are a state recognized nonprofit.
Okay. Then, yes, I'm going to drop my email address in here. If you want to send me an email with
Okay.
your contact information, and then we can talk. And that applies if anybody else has any questions, obviously.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Any other questions? I think we'll just take this time then to say thank you again. Thank you, Randall. Thank you, Lance. Randall, I don't know if you want to take us out.
Yes. Thank you guys for doing this. We really appreciate it. I want to say thank you to Lance and the staff. They really did a good job of putting all this together so quickly. We really appreciate it. It was great to have Senator Capito's office with us. The governor had planned to be here. We ran into a snag, but I wanted to tell you all real quick, what we're doing in August is we're doing for our state ARPA funds, we're doing an arts caravan with the governor. And this is where we will be. Lance will send this information out. But on Monday, August 2nd, we're coming to Moorfield. And that will be, and what we're doing is from 9 to 11:30, we'll have grant workshops. People can bring their applications. We'll look at them before they have to apply to us for the state. We have $765,000 in funds for ARPA from the 40%. And those grants are due September 1st. The applications are online now, but we will be in Moorfield at the high school auditorium on Monday, August 2nd from 9 to 11:30. And then we're going out to see organizations around the area on that day. On Tuesday, August 3rd, we'll be at Buchanan Upshur High School. On Wednesday, August 4th, we'll be at Independence Hall in Wheeling, West Virginia. And on Thursday, August 5th, we'll be at the Civic Center. I think it's called the Arena now, Mountain Health Arena in Huntington. And then on Friday, the 6th, we end up at Tamarack and Beckley. In the mornings, they're all at 9 o'clock. And then the staff, Lance will be there. Elizabeth Yeager will be there for individual artists. Cedric Farmer will be there for the community arts and arts partners. And Jenna will be there for cultural facilities. And we're there to help. The governor will be joining us in Beckley. But I just want to say thank you to the governor and how he has continued to find money to put into arts organizations during this time. Because as he says, we're going to come out of this. When we come out of it, we want to make sure we have all of our arts organizations. And we're very fortunate that we have a governor who is strongly supportive of the arts. Does anybody have any questions for us here at Culture and History? Hey, Lance, thank you for putting that on there.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Andy, thank you so much. Ben, you're welcome in West Virginia anytime. We can't wait to see you here.
Looking
Of
forward
course,
to it.
our own Nancy Daugherty, the incomparable Nancy Daugherty. She's amazing. We're very proud of her. And John, thank you for being on. We have a great Commission on the Arts, and we appreciate the great partnership with the National Endowment for the Arts. You guys have anything to say, Ben, Andy?
Thank you so
Nancy?
much. It's been a pleasure being with you all today.
Well, it's just good to see
Absolutely.
you. John, you
you.
want to say anything to say goodbye, Mr. Strickland?
Goodbye would be nice.
Okay. We're really appreciative of John. He sits on the NASA board, and he also is at Mid-Atlantic Foundation. So we are very well represented on the national front. Okay, if anybody has any questions, please
Randall, We Are Official is now Mid-Atlantic Arts.
Oh,
Foundation
okay.
is gone.
Okay. All right.
It's like NEA is National Endowment for the Arts.
Okay. That's great. I'll still probably say foundation. You know, I'm old and forgetful, John.
I'm with you.
Okay. All right. Anybody need anything? I'll give my speech to all of the West Virginia people. The biggest way you can help us is write the governor and say thank you. Write your legislators, and we will invite your legislators to those cities and say thank you because they continue to increase our budgets. As many of you know, there was a 1.5% reduction. We were the only agency that did not have a reduction. We actually had an increase to funding for the arts and funding for historic preservation and funding for our Save the Music initiative. So please write and say thank you. We're looking forward to Arts Day live and in person next year in February. Lance, do you know what that day is? I can't remember, February or March.
It's March.
I want to say like beginning of the month, right?
Yes.
But make sure we're out in full force. The dome is open, so we'll have plenty of room to host everybody. And if you have any questions, get a hold of us here at the Culture Center. And
I can give you those dates in just a second.
Okay. All right. So.
Yeah, I echo exactly what Randall said. At the federal level, we're so lucky to have your senators, Senator Capito and Senator Manchin, just great champions for the arts and our agency. So if, you know, federal dollars mean something to your organization, hearing from you and saying, this is what I was able to do with those federal resources, that goes a really long way. And really appreciate your staying in touch with us and with your members of Congress.
And I'm so glad Ben brought that up. Please apply for individual grants through the National Endowment for the Arts. And if you want somebody to look at your grant before you send it in, please send it to the arts section. They will give you great help. And we want to make sure that we continue to apply for individual grants through the National Endowment for the Arts. And it's the only way we can get more funding is for you to apply and for us to send in more grants and better grants. But thank you all for what you do in the state. We have very strong arts organizations. It's so nice to see so many of you joining us today. And we thank you, Ben. I can't wait to meet you in person. Andy, I have a great brownie recipe I want to share with you. And Nancy, thank you for everything. Lance?
Thank you, Randall. Thanks, Lance.
Thank you.
Yes. The Arts Conference is the 1st and 2nd of March. Arts Day at the Legislature is the 3rd. The Governor's Arts Awards will be the evening of the 1st, and the Poetry Out Loud State Finals will be the 11th and 12th of March.
Oh, so we have a great month lined up for March. And if any of you are all down in Charleston, please come and see the 100th anniversary exhibit of Blinko that's in Milton here in West Virginia. It's absolutely stunning. So thank you all. Please, please, please stay in touch. We're here to help you all. Okay. And Lance, thank you for putting all that information up there, but we will have it on our website, which is getting updated. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you.
everybody on the other side of the building. Everybody go out and make art. Have a great
Thanks,
time.
everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good job, Lance.